Welcome back, and this is going to end up being a long video. 13 games tonight. I don't know that we saw a huge change in things, but I did have to make numerous changes to the power rankings board coming out of tonight's games. Where some teams that I felt like were on the verge, the collapse is real. Let's go ahead and start off with the collapse is real, the Buffalo Sabres at home against the Minnesota Wild. And right out of the gate, this game felt odd. The Wild are up 4-0 in shots, then the Sabres get a power play. And you're kind of expecting, first few weeks of the season, they'd score on it, and Olofsson would get going, everybody, and no, not tonight. Parise scored from Eriksson Ek at 7:14, and that was right out of the penalty box. So, right after killing off a penalty, they get on the board 1-0. The Wild then got a power play late. Well, the Wild power play doesn't score, and then it does. It's Parise scoring from Suter and Fiala at 19:56. And that goal being right at the end of the period, the Boo Birds were out in Buffalo. The fans are getting restless. 2-0 lead for the Minnesota Wild after one. This is why when people look at a schedule and go, well, our record's not very good, but look at our upcoming schedule. You got to win those games, though. Second period, the Wild have an early edge in play. There was a goal for the Wild that was challenged as being offside, and it wasn't. Brodin scores from Zucker and Zuccarello at 5:29, and that means the Wild get a power play. They didn't score on that one, and then Eichel got a double minor for roughing, and that confused things for Buffalo because they felt that the person he was roughing with should have been in the box as well, but he wasn't. No harm, no foul on this, although Buffalo can't get anything going when you've got Eichel in the penalty box and you're killing penalties for a lot of the second period. So it does affect the flow of the play for Buffalo. Third period, the Sabres got a power play. Couldn't score on it. The Sabres didn't have anywhere near the amount of power plays that the Minnesota Wild had, but the slide for them definitely continues. Montour would score from Eichel at 16:11, which gave them some hope. They're down 3-1. But in reality, they just didn't have what they needed to win this game. That being said, they did pull the goalie because you got to be optimistic this day and age. Zucker would score into the empty net from Stahl and Koivu at 17:46. 4-1 is your final. The Minnesota Wild went into Buffalo. The highlight of this is Stalock very nearly getting a shutout. He doesn't end up getting it, but pretty good night for him. 30 saves on 31 shots. Ullmark saved 22 out of 25. 3 stars are Parise, Stalock, and Zucker. Shots were 12-10 Minnesota in the first, 11-10 Minnesota in the second, 11-3 in favor of the Sabres in the third. Final shots 31-26 in favor of the Buffalo Sabres. Power plays, Minnesota goes 1 for 7. Like I said, they run the power play a lot. Buffalo 0 for 3. So the slide for Buffalo continues. I'm not sure how far this goes, but this is a worrying trend. And the only win they have this month is over Ottawa, and everything else they've lost. They're not in a playoff spot right now, and teams are starting to pull ahead of them. And for Minnesota, they're not as far out of it now as they were, say, 2 weeks ago. I will say this, after tonight's action and looking at the standings, we could see a mediocre team in the West get in again. Last year we saw Colorado get in with only 39 wins. Now, they did get overtime loss points and shootout loss points, but the point was a team with 39 wins made it in the West and wouldn't have in the East. We may be looking at a situation like that in the West again this year because the number 2 wild card currently belongs to the Canucks, and they're not exactly burning the doors down right now in terms of wins either. So we'll see if this keeps up. Next up, Philadelphia. They went into the Florida Panthers home arena tonight, and again, I don't like talking about empty seats here and there, but there are some arenas where it's becoming really obvious. Buffalo is becoming obvious, and this is because of losing, but Florida, whether it's ticket prices being too high, whether it's whatever it is, this team right now is off to the best start they've been off to in a long time. And if I lived a little closer than thousands and thousands of miles away, I'd be buying tickets right, left, and center because this team is entertaining and it can score. Sanheim scored from Myers and Hayes at 6:26, so Philadelphia gets the early lead. Didn't last. Sevier scored from Matheson and Connolly at 10 minutes and 38 seconds, and then Connolly scored at 12:30, and that was a puck where he bounced it off of Hart's mask and off the back of his shoulder, whatever happened there, or off his neck, whatever happened there, it worked. 2-1 for Florida after the first period. Second period, the Flyers had a power play that started the period, didn't score on it. That would be a story for them tonight. Barkov then scored from Dadonov and Brown at 6:46. It's 3-1. Huberdeau then scored from Barkov and Dadonov at 10:23, and that's the end of Carter Hart's night. He is pulled yet again, and Elliott would finish the game. The Panthers went to a power play, didn't score, but coming out of that, Morgan Frost with a goal from Konechny at 14:20. That made it 4-2. That's Frost's first goal. Congratulations to him, and there's hope for the future for the Flyers. There's a late Panthers power play. That didn't go anywhere. They only had a couple tonight. Third period, the Flyers got a power play right around the half. They had a lot of pressure about 11 minutes in. Bobrovsky was actually really solid tonight. The Panthers were guilty of sitting back and kind of just trying to kill the game. I hate it when teams do that. But they did get the empty netter. Hoffman scores at 17:28. So they withstood the barrage that the Philadelphia Flyers put on their net in that third period. 3 stars are Barkov, Connolly, and Frost. And your final score is 5-2 for the Florida Panthers. Bobrovsky saved 35 out of 37. Carter Hart saved 14 out of 18. Elliott went in and saved 7 out of 7. Shots 13-11, Philly in the first. 10-10 in the second, and in the third, Philadelphia outshot him 14-5. Just couldn't beat Bobrovsky. Final shots 37-26. Power plays, Philadelphia goes 0 for 2, and Florida goes 0 for 4. So for Florida, this to me was their most impressive win that I've seen in a while. And for Philly, it's kind of a convincing defeat for Philly. They can come out of tonight and bounce back. I'm guessing they play on Thursday. The schedule coming up is crazy. So you have 2 games tomorrow. Then Thursday there's, I think, 13. Then there's 2 on Friday. Then there's another 14 on Saturday. Then next week, due to American Thanksgiving, there's 13 games on Wednesday. There's 1 on Thursday, 12 on Friday, and I think it's 13 on Saturday. So schedules are going to be kind of crazy, and I would imagine that the power rankings board I'm looking at right now is going to change dramatically over the next 10 days from where it sits right now. And whoever survives this barrage, again, American Thanksgiving kind of gives you a barometer for where everybody is, and we'll see if Florida can keep this up. So far, so good for them. Next up, Boston. These guys. The Boston Bruins went into New Jersey tonight. And it's weird. Early on in this game, I wasn't happy. I didn't think Boston was playing particularly well. And there's empty seats in the corner. So you've got the corner that the Bruins started at, and this is the visiting corner. There's a row of seats down front that always seems to be empty for New Jersey. I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if it's season ticket buyers that don't sit there, if they're for like a special group or special occasions or something. But there seems to be a row right in the corner near the goaltender that's always empty. So if you're a Devils fan and you know why those seats are always empty, you can either email me or leave a comment here. It's just strange because I've noticed, I think it's 3 games in the last 2 weeks where those seats are always empty, and I'm curious as to why. Devils got a power play at 12:15. That wouldn't succeed. And not too long after that expired, Grzelcyk scores from Marchand and Krejci at 14:26. Then while you're picking yourself up, they allow another one. Pastrnak scores from Marchand and Krejci at 14:40. So who needs scoring depth if you're the Bruins? That's where we're at right now with Boston. They apparently don't need scoring depth. There was a late Bruins power play. Their power play, that one didn't work for them. But going into the second, they're up 2-0. And I didn't think they played that first period well enough to be up 2-0. Other than that 14 seconds, I thought the Devils were probably the better team. Second period, the Devils not getting enough shots. That was obvious. They would pick them up as the period went along. Rask denied Gusev when the Devils did make that push. The shots seemed to be evening out. And then Coleman scored from Gusev and Butcher at 18:11. So it's 2-1 after 2. And you're thinking, well, New Jersey's kind of garbage in the third period usually, but eventually that has to turn around. Not tonight. In the third, Pastrnak drew a Subban trip, and it was really amazing to watch how he drew that penalty, where he was going around Subban, and Subban kind of had to trip him. Otherwise, it was going to be a goal. He wasn't happy with the call. He took it out on a water bottle, poor helpless water bottle in the penalty box. Probably 1 day left to retirement for that water bottle. And then he wasn't any happier when on the power play, Pastrnak scores from Marchand and Coyle at 3:19. So that's a couple of goals for Pasta as he continues this ridiculous run he's been on. And I've been not talking about it too much because I don't think it can continue at this rate, and yet it is. The Devils, they almost answered right away, but didn't. And then Grzelcyk scored from McAvoy at 10:33, and then Connor Clifton with a nice shot from the point at 13:42 makes it 5-1 in favor of the Boston Bruins. And the Devils' third period woes are still a thing. This team still can't win in the third period. Rask saved 25 out of 26. Blackwood saved 23 out of 28. 3 stars are Pastrnak. Grzelcyk with 2 goals. So I guess that's depth scoring. Grzelcyk's not depth scoring. Rask also in net. Very solid tonight. 25 saves for him. Power plays. Boston goes 1 for 2. New Jersey goes 0 for 2. The shots were 6-5 in the first in favor of Boston. 12-11 Boston in the second. Both teams had 10 shots in the third for final shot totals of 28 for the Bruins and 26 for the Devils. Worthy of note, Carter Hart and Mackenzie Blackwood seem to be tied together. I've been keeping track of this. When one has a bad night, so does the other. When one has a good night, so does the other. That seems to be a thing this year. It's one of those weird things that I notice because I'm always doing these boards and watching every game that I can and watching as much as I can. And I notice that when one has an off night, so does the other one statistically. So it's one of those bizarre things that only I would probably notice, or some of the advanced stats people may notice that as well. Next up, Islanders. What the heck? I came into tonight, and now the last video I wore today, I was wearing the Islanders fisherman jersey, which means I was wearing that while I was watching most of the games tonight. I didn't change until after like 8 games were already done. So early on, I thought, well, I've jinxed the Islanders. Here I am wearing it. I sometimes think that, and I know how bizarre and weird that is, but people get superstitious about weird things, and yeah, I do that. The Penguins got an early power play. There was then a goal that was challenged as offside, and it was ruled as offside. They talked about this tonight. There have actually been fewer challenges. There were a number of them tonight, but fewer challenges since last year. Last year, I think the rate at overturning them was like 35%. Now it's above 50%. Coaches challenge when they're told that they should. So there's somebody watching up top that goes, that play's offside, that play's not. We're not seeing as many that are just like, I'll challenge it and I'll lose a timeout, but who cares? I don't really care. There were times last year where coaches would challenge when they knew it wasn't going to come back. So we're not seeing that. And that goal comes back. Then there was a scary incident as a puck hit Nelson in the head. Let's discuss pucks in the head a little bit. I noticed that there were members of the Chicago Blackhawks. Just in particular, I noticed this on a close-up shot, that they have the inserts that cover your ears in their helmets. Patrick Kane's one of them, and yet most of the players didn't. They should be mandated to wear those. Also, when a guy takes a puck in the head, if we're going to decide that automatically means a referee should stop the play, and I agree, that should mean that a player who gets a puck in the head should automatically go into concussion protocol. That should be automatic. For player safety and just to make everything fair, that should be automatic. He didn't, and yet he had a decent game. So hopefully he's 100% okay. Sometimes with concussions, you don't know until after. Rust scored from Gensel and Malkin at 11:34. That's on the power play. Rust continues this amazing scoring, considering he's missed a lot of games. Tanev then scored from Marino and McCann at 16:18. So Marino continues to score points at a decent rate for a rookie, especially one that wasn't considered to be pushing for a job this year. So 2-0 Pittsburgh after 1. Second period, Beauvillier scores from Leddy and Nelson at 2:39, and then Nelson scored from Leddy and Broussard at 5:30. So Broussard made his points per dollar, his cost per point go down tonight. And Nelson, that's a goal and an assist in about 3 minutes of time. And so, yeah, he was okay. Varlamov then denied Galchenyuk, which I thought was worthy of throwing on the board, but before the end of the second period, Pittsburgh scores Tanev from Pettersson and Cahoon at 14:31. So it's 3-2 Pittsburgh entering the third. In the third period, on the power play, the Pittsburgh Penguins get a goal from Jake Gensel, Galchenyuk and Malkin with the assists on that at 2:39. So up 4-2 at home. You go, you know what? The Islanders have had a really good run. They've had a really nice run. But the point streak's going to end tonight. It has to end somewhere. So tonight, that makes sense. Pittsburgh has a good rivalry with the Islanders. And so, this is a good place for it to end. That's fine. And then, no. The Islanders got a power play with 6:26 left. They didn't score on it, but Bailey scores from Eberle and Taves at 15:41. So not that long after that power play ended. They pulled the goalie with 2 minutes left, and because it's the New York Islanders, they scored. It's Pulock from Brassard and Leddy. So again, Brassard with 2 assists tonight. That's at 18:28. That ties it up going into overtime. That's 15 games with at least a point for the Islanders. They're into the territory of the 1980s Islanders when it comes to point streaks and overall performance. They are really top-notch. Lee was then robbed by a combination of Matt Murray and Justin Schultz. Then the feed cut out. So I have NHL Center Ice, and the feed just went to that music it goes to. Like, yeah, that's it. Game's over. Game wasn't over when it cut. Now, the app updated me and told me Nelson scored from Beauvilliers at 2:55. But I was too busy swearing at the television to really let that sink in. That the Islanders had come back from 2 goals down in the third and won it in overtime. It's really bizarre with Center Ice. There are times where a game will end and I can watch 3 minutes of a post game before it cuts out. And there are times like this tonight where it'll cut out before the game's over. I mentioned during the one where Colorado beat Nashville 9-4 a couple weeks back that it just didn't show me the third period until there was 3 minutes left in the third period. It just cut out. It's frustrating, is what that is. But anyways, Varlamov saves 27 out of 31 in the victory. Murray saves 37 out of 42. Your 3 stars are Nelson, Tanev, and Leddy. Shots, 11-9 for Pittsburgh in the first, 14-11 in favor of Pittsburgh in the second, and then the Islanders just took over in the third, 17-6, and they outshot them 5-0 in overtime. Final shots, 42-31 for the Islanders. Power plays, the Islanders go 0-3, and Pittsburgh goes 2-4. So, solid game for both teams. I would love to see these guys play each other in the playoffs again. I'm sure Islander fans would love to see that. I don't know about Penguins fans. But they're close. These teams are close to one another, and they seem to be able to have these momentum shifts that make their games more exciting. That being said, I now have to change boards. All right, Columbus, where's this been? This is the kind of game that Columbus desperately needed, and they got it tonight. And for Montreal fans, they're probably thinking, why couldn't they wait till the next game to get it? So Robinson scores from Savard and Wenberg at 1:24. I'm pretty sure that was the second shot of the game for Columbus. So not a great start. However, before the end of the period, Lehkonen scores from Dano and Kulak at 16:31. So in a period where Montreal played really, really well, and so did Columbus, comes out tied. That's the right way for this game to be going. In the second period, Armia scores from Sherratt and Petrie at 4:29. And the Habs were pressing for another goal. Couldn't get it. As Korpisalo had another pretty darn good game. Korpisalo is very quietly having a solid season. Even though his stats are kind of underwhelming, he's having a good year. Dubois scored from Bemstrom at 12:50. Emil Bemstrom is really, again, this is an under-the-radar player as well who's having a pretty darn good season. Price, actually, on that one, we can't talk about what happened with him. We'll talk about one in the third. Columbus went to the power play, didn't score. The Habs went to a power play. They didn't score on that. Third period, at 6:54, Bemstrom gets a goal from Milano and Dubois, and it was this bizarre bounce. And it reminded me of, when you'd hacky sack as a kid, and the hacky sack would be up here, and you'd play it off your chest down to your foot. It was the only move I was ever any good at. And Price kind of did that, but he chested it into the net. So it was just a bizarre play. They all count, so Bemstrom gets a goal there to go with his assist, and pretty good night for him. Armia got a break right after that was denied. So Armia with a really nice pushback. Yoel Armia is having a fantastic year. Columbus got a power play right around the halfway mark, and Boone Jenner would score from Bjorkstrand and Werenski at 11:06. Werenski, maybe he felt bad at that point. They were up 4-2. He took a penalty that sent the Habs to the power play. The Habs would not score. Shortly after that power play ended, Dubois scores from Nyquist and Bjorkstrand. So Bjorkstrand with a couple of helpers. Nyquist gets on the board. Dubois with a couple of goals and an assist. And at 14:33, that made it 5-2 for Columbus. Pretty solid game. Price saved 21 out of 26. Korpisalo saved 30 out of 32. 3 stars are Dubois, Korpisalo, and Bemstrom. Shots, 13 apiece in the first period, 11-7 Montreal in the second, and 8-6 Montreal in the third. Final shots, 32-26 for Montreal. They go 0 for 2 on the power play. Columbus 1 for 2. And for Montreal, it's one of those frustrating results that you can get on the road. They're going to look back on this one as a game they could have won. But when goals were needed, they were all going in their net rather than Columbus's. And full marks to Korpisalo for outdueling Price at the other end of the ice. All right, moving along. Ottawa in against Detroit. And at this point in the night, I had to kind of make decisions like, okay, there's 8 games on. All right, well, I will ration out my time here accordingly. And I wanted to see what happened here and here. So this suffered because there were already 5 other games on. Duclair scored from Shabbat at 3:08. Philip Hronek then got a goal that was called back as offside. Remember, those challenges, more than 50% of the time when a coach calls for a challenge, he's right. The Wings got a power play. It lasted 5 seconds, and then it was over. But neither team scored in those situations. Fabry ends up getting a goal from Filppula and Hronek at 9:57. Yes, the story of Robbie Fabry with the Detroit Red Wings is an unmitigated success. This is a great story in and amongst a season that may turn out to be forgettable. Filppula then scored from Helm at 18:32 shorthanded because Ottawa's power play sucks. And I say that with all love meant to Ottawa. Their power play is bad. They're not the only one in the league with a bad power play, but it's bad. Second period, it's all Ottawa in the second period. Duclair from Logan Brown at 5 minutes. Jean-Gabriel Pageau says, all right, I know I had a brutal night against Buffalo. I'm going to make up for it. He scores a goal at 5:57, so 2 goals in a minute. And then Brady Tkachuk scores from Duclair at 10:22, and it's 4-2 in favor of Ottawa. Detroit gets power play. It goes nowhere. And in the third period, this is another Wings setback. And the Sens, they're keeping it up. If the Senators can start winning games on the road, they're not that far out of the playoffs. That's where things get really, really bizarre. I think right now they're 4 points out of the playoffs. And again, I mentioned this morning. If they get off to a bit of a run on this road trip, do you start flirting with the idea of not going all in, not getting big rentals or anything, but do you flirt with the idea of just adding to the team? Add a couple of veterans. Not high priced or anything, just add a couple, just to see if your team can make a bit of a push. Just think of how much Melnyk would take credit if this team actually fought its way into a wild card spot, even if it was just into March and they fell out of it. Mantha would score from Hronek and Athanasiou at 17:14 to make it close. They did pull the goaltender. The Senators hung on, and bless the Red Wings for taking a timeout with 0.6 seconds left. That's not enough time. You can't do it. Unless the timeout was something along the lines of, okay, if there's some kind of a quantum gravitational thing that happens that makes all the Senators disappear, I think if you just shoot the puck into the empty net, we'll tie it up and then we can win by forfeit because they've all disappeared in the overtime. That's the only play I can imagine Blashill having drawn up on the bench. So 4-3 is your final in favor of Ottawa. Nelson saved 35 out of 38. He continues to be a fantastic story. Bernier, 29 saves on 33 shots. Your 3 stars are Duclair, Nilsson, and Pageau. Anthony Duclair, great numbers so far for Ottawa. Started out slow the first 8 games. He's been about a point a game since then. Power plays, Ottawa's goes 0 for 4 because, with great affection, it sucks. And Detroit 0 for 3 on the power play. The shots favored Ottawa in the first, 13-10, 17-12 for Ottawa in the second. And then the third, Ottawa decided they'd had enough of that. They get outshot 16-3 for final shots of 38-33 in favor of Detroit. Yeah, Nilsson helped bring this home. This wasn't as much Ottawa just playing a great road game as Nilsson saying, okay, I've got a 2-goal lead entering the third. I'm just going to put the team on my back and drag them across the finish line. And good on them. All right, moving along. Tampa Bay and St. Louis. Okay, Tampa. I'm officially frustrated with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And again, Tampa has games where they look great, and then they have games like this where I don't know how much of it is that they're not as interested. Now, the big storyline out of tonight, and I made sure I put at the bottom headline is that Brayden Schenn takes out Kucherov. And we can have the debate, probably in the news of the day tomorrow, I would imagine, about whether or not it's a clean hit or a dirty hit. It's going to depend on if Kucherov's going to be out for a while. I haven't seen yet. I haven't checked all the Twitters and all that. It's in one of those internet tubes that people talk about. I haven't seen how long he's going to be out, or if it's just a precautionary thing that they took him out. But that's kind of your storyline. The thing is, Tampa Bay has been frustratingly inconsistent with Kucherov in the lineup. So, it started with the Bolts getting a power play early on. There were near misses at both ends of the period, or at both ends of the rink during that first period. Sundqvist teed one up and he missed. He would make up for that later. Cirelli then got one on the power play from Killorn and Hedman at 16:36. So Tampa Bay up 1-0. Blues get a power play late. They didn't come through on that one. And it was a good road period for Tampa in the first. Not bad. Then the rest of the game happened. Second period, the first really notable item was there was a scrum at 8:15. This was one of those games I was watching a lot, but there weren't a lot of notes I could take on that first 8 minutes of that second period. The Blues got a power play. Good road period for the Bolts overall. Good game. And the Lightning got their second power play. The penalty's then taken that turns it into a 4-on-4. And I believe that penalty was on Luke Schenn in front of the net. And I put Vasilevsky's best game so far with a question mark because I think tonight was kind of his best game so far this year. But Perron would score from Parayko and O'Reilly at 17:24. That's a shorthanded goal, so that nullifies the power play goal. And the Blues then got a power play. Their power play wouldn't succeed tonight. I don't know why this says 0 for 2. They were at least 1 for 2 on the power play. I'm going to change that because that Cirelli goal read as power play. So now if they actually change that scoring to not being a power play goal, then that's wrong at the bottom, and that'll drive people crazy. Third period, and the Blues were doubling the shot total of Tampa to that point. And I noticed little things going on both ways. A trip here, interference there, a hook here. And I'm like, okay, so the referees really want them to decide it on their own. They don't want to get involved. If penalties are going to get called, it's just going to be a 4-on-4 because they don't want to get involved. Sundqvist then with an absolutely perfect shot. Assist to Thomas at 6:16. And seriously, it was a great shot. The Bolts then tried to answer right away, but Binnington stood in their way. And there was solid defense by both teams in that third period. Neither team was getting a whole lot. The middle of the ice was clogged up pretty good, which favors St. Louis with the lead, right? There was a great save by Binnington with 2 minutes left. They pulled the goalie with 1 minute and 30 seconds left, which allowed Schwartz to get the empty netter from Schenn at 19:55 to make it 3-1. But again, the headline is Brayden Schenn takes out Kucherov, and how much that may have affected Tampa the rest of the way, and how long is he going to be out? How many more injuries to big names is the NHL going to be dealing with at the exact same time? Vasilevsky, 31 saves on 33 shots. Binnington, 17 saves on 18 shots. Your 3 stars are Sundqvist, Perron, and Parayko. And power plays, as I said, Tampa Bay had to be 1 for 2 if that Cirelli goal is on the power play. They were 0 for 2 if it's not. St. Louis 0 for 4 on their power play. Shots are 8-7 Tampa in the first, 18-4 for St. Louis in the second, 9-6 St. Louis in the third for a final shot total of 34-18 for St. Louis. This score was as close as it was because of Andrei Vasilevsky. That's the only reason this score was close. Other than that, yeah, not a great night for them. Now, Winnipeg. I don't know what to say other than Winnipeg just keeps winning. And Nashville is finding ways to lose games. And they're getting out goaltended. They're getting outplayed. And it's either usually one or the other. Tonight it was the goaltending. They really weren't outplayed, which kind of makes it more frustrating for the fans. I don't think it's more frustrating for the coach. You know things are going to turn around. But when your team loses games that they probably should win, it can be more frustrating. First period didn't take long, did it? Line A from Connor at 18 seconds. So before you've sat down with your beer at your seat, It's 1-0. And that's a worst case scenario, I thought, for the Predators. I put that with a question mark because I don't know how the game's going to turn out at that point. I put worst case scenario. Kind of did turn out to be that. The Predators were actually up 5-1 in shots at 7 minutes and 30 seconds. But that one shot for the Jets had gone in the net. And it sort of, to me, felt like the Chicago game at that stage where I was like, is it going to be that? Where every time a puck goes near their net, it goes in. The Jets got a power play. It didn't last very long with 5 minutes left. It was 4-on-4 play. The Predators then got a power play shortly thereafter, and they got 25 seconds of a 5-on-3 as well. But by the time everything all shakes out, that's kind of the end of special teams. In the second period, the Jets held that 5-on-3 off. That would turn out to be a key play for them. And then Wheeler looked like he got hurt. I know he stayed in the game, but it looked like he was hurt on the play. He was kind of laboring as he went to the bench. Ehlers would then score from Roslovic and Scheifele at 3:47. So Ehlers continues what has been a very good season for him. I believe that's his 10th goal of the year. And I was never a huge fan of Nick Ehlers until this season. Ehlers this year's been great. The Predators were ahead 19-9 in shots, and they were behind 2-0 on the scoreboard. That tends to get frustrating. And I put Ehlers becoming my favorite Jet because after that goal, there were still some other plays that he had that were just great. Laine then had a ripper that he let go that went high. That was labeled for the top corner. However, Bonino scored from Grimaldi and Hamhuis at 18-11. So with 1:49 seconds left in the second, it's a 1-goal game. And the Jets got a power play shortly thereafter, which is probably good for them because Nashville tends to score in bunches. Third period. The Predators did pressure at about the 8-minute mark. They gave it everything they had. Hellebuck was fantastic. He was the one that was keeping them in the lead. The Jets, I thought, were giving the Predators way too many chances. Not just shots. I'm talking really prime scoring opportunities for Nashville. And then, oddly enough, there was an interference call that was also embellishment. And I've been asked about this, like, well, how can you embellish if it's a penalty on the other team? Oh, Granstrom pointed his toes before he went in the water. That was a beautiful dive. And if he hadn't tried to sell it, he wouldn't have gone to the box too. There's also what I was talking about here in the St. Louis-Tampa game, which is the referees don't want to decide the game, so they're more likely to want to make it a 4-on-4 rather than give a team a power play if they can avoid it. So there was probably some of that in there as well. But yeah, Granlund really tried to sell it. And it was Perreault that got the interference penalty there. Laine, I believe this was during the 4-on-4. Laine got an amazing steal, which was saved by Saros. So Laine could have had a few goals tonight. They pulled the goalie with 1:30 seconds left. They called a timeout with 56.2 seconds left. All for naught. Winnipeg holds on and wins 2-1. So again, it's a white knuckle ride if you're a Jets fan, but they won. Hellebuck saves 38 out of 39. Saros saves 23 out of 25. Your 3 stars are Hellebuck, Ehlers, and Bonino. 0 for 2, both teams on the power play. Shots 10-8 for Nashville in the first, 13-7 Nashville in the second, 16-10 Nashville in the third. Final shots 39-25 in favor of the Nashville Predators. But again, they lose a game where they have a dramatic lead in shots. And it does get kind of frustrating. But again, for the Jets, they did it again. This was very similar to the San Jose game where they're outshot badly, and Hellebuck steals 2 points for them. So everybody owes him a drink after... Well, not all at once, but everybody in the team owes him a drink. Don't do it all at once, because then he won't be good to go in the next game. But even though I doubt they play tomorrow, there's only 2 games tomorrow. But don't do that. That's not nice. Everybody owes him one drink at separate times. Because he's really saved their bacon on a few occasions so far this year. That being said, I have to change boards. Never let up. I think the Carolina Hurricanes tonight let up. And it almost cost them. Very, very nearly. This was one of those games that really shouldn't have been as close as it was down the stretch. So the Canes were up 5-2 in shots at 5 minutes. Leonard was holding the Canes off at that point. It didn't last. Eventually, with as many shots as they were getting, one of them's going to go in. Netsch scores from Niederreiter and Wallmark at 14:24, and the Hawks just weren't getting enough shots. They weren't generating enough opportunities in that first period, and they're down 1-0. Second period, first minute. Svechnikov from Slavin and Edmondson at 53 seconds. It's 2-0. The Hawks got a power play. That was denied. That was shut down by Mrazek, who had a pretty good game until that one period in the third there where things got kind of shaky. Niederreiter then scored from Wallmark and Hamilton at 11:54. So Nino Niederreiter with a good game. Goal and an assist for him. Shots at that point are 20-11 for Carolina. And the Canes got a power play towards the end of that period. So they're up 3-0 going into the third period. No problem, right? It's Chicago. Patrick Kane's been on a really hot streak, but they're keeping everything in check. They held them to 12 shots through 2 periods. Everything's going to be fine. Then the third period happened. The Hawks got a needed power play, but they didn't score on it. Carolina's speed was really the story of the game to that point, where their speed was just killing anything Chicago got going. The combination of the speed and just their play with the puck. At 12:05, Gustafsson scored from Kane and DeBrincat. And just one of those fast break plays, and Kane, absolutely fantastic pass by him to Gustafsson. Then 70 seconds later, it's Connor Murphy from Kane and Doc. So Doc has a 5-game point streak going. And I put, wow, momentum shift. Like, this was huge. It went from Chicago looks done, the crowd seems kind of quiet, to everybody's into it. The Hawks know they're in it. And it's 3-2. Taves, pretty much right after that goal, Taves gets a nice break. And he almost made it a 3-3 tie. And in and around that play, the Canes get hemmed in their own zone. So the Hawks go to the power play. This is absolutely worst case scenario. And I got to think that Brind'Amour was losing his mind on the bench. Just a little bit. Not a lot, but just a little bit. Like, what's happening? We were up 3-0. Now it's 3-2 and they're on the power play. But the Canes killed that penalty. While the Hawks were pressuring very, very strongly during that power play. The Canes, guilty of holding on. They were guilty of holding on kind of right off the bat in that third period. Kane, fantastic effort. He went through, I think, 4 different guys on the same play. I always talk about how don't try to skate through everybody. If you're Patrick Kane, by all means, try it because sometimes it works. Patrick Kane's one of those few guys in the league that can just skate through everybody. Barkov's another one. Mrazek then denied DeBrincat late in the game. They pull the goalie with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. Aho ends up getting the empty netter in 1942, and then there was a scrum thereafter because Hawks weren't very happy with the Canes, and I think in all likelihood they were probably really emotionally jacked from what they were doing, and probably seeing that empty netter go in probably ticked some of them off. But, you know, that's the way things work. Hockey's an emotional game, and your final score is 4-2 in favor of the Carolina Hurricanes. Mrazek saved 30 out of 32. If not for this 70-second issue here, if he'd had this in the first period, I think he would have been one of the 3 stars. Leonard, 29 saves on 32 shots. Your 3 stars are Niederreiter, Kane, and Svechnikov. Power plays, Carolina 0 for 1, Chicago 0 for 3. It really wasn't an issue. Shots in the first, 13-4 Carolina. Second, 14-8 for Carolina, and then the third, 20-6 for Chicago. Figure it out. Final shots, 33-32 in favor of Carolina. You don't allow 20 shots in the third period. You just can't be doing that if you want to win regularly. So hopefully they avoid that going forward. All right, moving along. Dallas. This game wasn't close. And you know what's funny is, people may wonder, like, which games does Shannon watch the most on busy nights like this? Well, games that are close get a lot of attention. I really didn't watch Dallas and Vancouver very much, which shows how different things are now from 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I would have given this game my undivided attention, and I'd probably be ripping the Canucks a new one right now. I don't get as emotional as I used to either. Ben scored in the first from Fox on Como at 7:53. I'll be darned. Jamie Benn has absolutely woken up and is playing the best hockey he has in a couple of years right now. The Stars got a power play, but their power play has been pretty bad for the most part this year. The Canucks got a power play. Their power play, great, horrible, great, horrible, great. There is no in between. Canucks power play is really weird that way. It's either got great stats or just miserable. Second period, only down 1-0, but there's an early Stars power play. Then the Canucks got a 5-on-3. They didn't score on it. When you don't score on a 5-on-3 and you're down 1-0 on the road, that's kind of brutal. You're giving them energy. Bishop was really fantastic tonight. He doesn't get a star at all, but he probably should have. The Stars got a power play, and I'll be dipped. They scored on it. Jamie Benn from Perry and Heiskanen at 9:59. Corey Perry started picking it up offensively as well. It's 2-0. However, less than 2 minutes later, Horvat from Besser at 11:24. The Canucks are alive. No, they're not. 2 minutes later, Fedun from Dickinson and Kamano. Yeah, Fedun. He was Canucks property at one point, I believe. Canucks got a power play after that, but their power play was miserable tonight, so it didn't score. It's 3-1 Dallas after 2. But you can still look and go, well, there's comebacks. Now, here's the thing. We've talked about comebacks all season. Out of the 13 games tonight, if a team was losing entering the third period, they lost. That's it. The comebacks start to die off in November, as I'd expected they would. And in the third, yeah, any hope of a comeback died really early. 2:44, it's Heiskanen from Dowling and Sagan. Then Sagan assisted on Dowling's goal. Ben with the other assist at 3:26. So 2 goals in about 40 seconds. And that made it 5-1. And then Perry scores from Lindell at 8:29. And I'm pretty sure Corey Perry has really good stats against the Canucks throughout his career. I seem to remember him being the dagger for the Canucks against Anaheim a lot. Yeah, so 6-1. And just for people tracking goal differential, the Canucks goal differential is now down to a +5. It is not what it was. The Canucks got a power play late. They couldn't score on it. It really didn't generate a whole lot. Markstrom saved 25 out of 31. He's been emotional and upset after certain goals go in. He had that happen tonight as well. Bishop, 32 saves on 33 shots. Your 3 stars are Ben, Heiskanen, and Dowling, and the Canucks are in freefall. This is 2 wins in 10 games now in November. This is more than just a small slump we're talking about now. This is about a month's worth of work. 0 for 5 was the Canucks power play. 1 for 3 was Dallas as it continues to start showing some life. Shots were 11-8 in favor of Dallas in the first, 14-10 for Vancouver in the second, 11-10 Vancouver in the third. They actually outshot Dallas 33-31. Just when the puck was at their end, it tended to go in the net. So, frustrating night for Vancouver. No doubt about that one. All right. Calgary. A rough night for Canadian teams on this side of the board, wasn't it? But the last board of the night, which only has 1 game, good night for that Canadian team on there. Not a great night for Calgary. So in the first period, Burakovsky scores from McKinnon and Makar at 3:21. If anybody wants to keep arguing about whether or not Makar is going to end up being Rookie of the Year, he now has 23 points in 21 games as a rookie on the blue line. And it's insane. It's insane the numbers he's putting up. There were not a lot of shots either way, and I said the Flames need a goal. That's an understatement. Flames fans are going to call me on that. That's an understatement at that point. Late power play for the Flames. They got a lot of shots, couldn't get a goal on it. And then Burakovsky scored from McKinnon at 18:25, because of course he did. So it's 2-0 in favor of Colorado after 1, because of course. Even though they'd been outshot by almost 2-1, Colorado's ahead. Second period, the Avs got an early power play, didn't score on it. The Flames found themselves shorthanded again halfway through the period. Those were the only 2 power plays for Colorado, and both of them failed. But that's the only place Colorado really fails tonight. Hamanev scores from Compher and Nichushkin at 13:15. So Nichushkin on the board. I think that's his 3rd assist of the year. And then at 17:41, it's Derek Ryan from Lucic. And that's it. It only took 167 minutes and 44 seconds. 167 minutes, 44 seconds of game time for them to get another goal. So it's 2-1 after 1, or after 2 in favor of 3-1 after 2 in favor of Colorado. It's late. It's a lot of hockey. Third period, most will understand, some won't. Third period, the Flames' offense just wasn't generating. There wasn't a whole lot going their way. Grubauer wasn't showing any rust either. So Grubauer making his first appearance in a couple of weeks. You wouldn't know it from watching him here. Riddick denied Donskoy. Really nice shot by Donskoy. Almost 10th goal right there. And then I noticed Gaudreau was fighting the puck. Now, I've mentioned this with Elias Pettersson, where players just stick handling too much. And you watch the play and you're thinking, okay, you're not, your head's down, you're kind of looking at the puck and looking around for what you're going to do with it, rather than going, okay, where's my line mates? And I noticed Johnny Hockey doing that tonight. That's a problem. I believe now he's at 1 assist in his last 5 games. You got to simplify your game and relax a little bit. And I know that can be tough in a Canadian market. The pressure's definitely higher in Canadian markets, and Goudreau's been fighting it. Mangiapane then scored from Shellington and Monahan at 15:44. So Monahan does get a helper tonight. There was an empty net. The Flames then got a power play with 20.6 seconds left. I thought the Flames blew it. And I'll tell you why. They had a delayed penalty. Give them the puck. As soon as you can, give them the puck. Because I think they had it for about 15 seconds there, 6 on 5. Make it 6 on 4. Give them the puck as soon as possible. Just throw it to them. But, again, that's what happens. But that left them with 20.6 seconds, and Colorado killed it. They throw Kadri out on the ice to take the draw. And that's all she wrote. 3-2 win for Colorado. Grubauer saved 31 out of 33. Riddick saved 23 out of 26. Your 3 stars are Burakovsky, McKinnon, and Ryan. Power plays, both teams go for 2. Calgary outshot Colorado 13-7 in the first. Colorado outshot them 13-11 in the second. 9-6 in the third were the shots in favor of Calgary. Final shots 33-26 for the Flames. And they come out on the losing end 3-2. So for Colorado, it's another gutsy win on the road. These guys are playing some fantastic hockey, and maybe they're starting to get healthy. I say this knowing that all their forwards are hurt, but maybe they're starting to get healthy. Minus all of their forwards, not named McKinnon, and Kadri and Burakovsky. Burakovsky continues to be quite the story. The fact that he's your number 1 star, he's been fantastic. And yet, you look at what Washington is doing, it's not like they miss him. They're doing great themselves. So it's worked out for both. Next up. All right. I may have got a chuckle at points in this game. I may have. For Vegas and Toronto, this was a tale of 2 teams that are struggling. And you could see in both cases, these teams still have those struggling issues. The difference being Vegas wins. Vegas has won back-to-back games now at home, and they've won them by a combined score of 10-2. So Vegas is winning, and Toronto is now 9-10-4. And this road trip, I've got to say, if they don't get a win in Arizona or Colorado, and Arizona and Colorado are no gimmies, I don't see how you don't come out with major changes. If the general manager at the end of this road trip sees a team that's 9-12-3 and goes, we'll be fine. And I'm not a Leafs fan, and I'm sighing incredulously at that. First period, the Leafs were actually ahead in shots early, and I thought, would this be the elixir for the Leafs? Being on the road, no pressure, you're on the road, you're good. A lot of Leafs jerseys in the crowd, but Vegas, you often see road teams' jerseys, and I think it's very similar to what we see here in Vancouver, where you're a fan of the Canucks, and then certain teams come in, and you're like, all right, well, tonight I'm cheering for this team because they're against Canucks. I've done that. I've wore Boston gear in Vancouver. I've wore Dallas gear in Vancouver. 90% of the time I'm wearing Canucks gear. It's rare. So when I see that as well with Vegas, I'm thinking, you know what? There's probably locals that are wearing Toronto jerseys because they're transplants. With Vegas, you have transplants from all over. Engvall, I thought, was decent in his debut for the ice time that he got. Second period, Vegas got an early chance, and Anderson looked really good. Anderson was turning everything aside. And in that second period, he was really kind of under siege. Fleury denied Riley. It was a really nice play for Morgan Riley that was definitely denied as well. The Leafs were hemmed in, which caused a penalty. Theodore had a point shot that was stopped by Anderson. The Leafs penalty kill wasn't able to change. They had 2 opportunities to dump it down the ice, and in both cases didn't. I believe in one case it was Kapanen. I know in one case it was Jake Muzzin who had an opportunity, and he just skied it. And it reminds me, tomorrow I'm going to the kids hockey and I'm coaching the game. And the one thing I always tell the kids, play it down the boards. Don't play it in front of your net. Don't try to get pretty with it. If we're caught in our own zone, play it down the boards. And Muzzin didn't play it down the boards. Glass ends up scoring because the Leafs penalty kill was gassed. Pacioretty and Schmidt with the assists at 8:07. So Schmidt, glad you watched my video and you decided to get that defense scoring going. And Vegas fans, you're welcome. I don't believe for a second that that's the case. 18 times the Leafs have allowed the first goal in a game out of 23 games this year. You don't win very much when you don't score first. There was a late push by Vegas, but it was 1-0 after 2. And you feel like, all right, well, it's only a 1-goal game. Vegas is known to struggle at home in the third period. Maybe. Nylander had a chance that was denied by Fleury, but that was the first Leafs shot in 7.5 minutes. If you're not getting shots, well, you guys know the rest. However, Spezza would score from Mikheyev at 7:26. That was only their second shot of the third period. And all I could think was, Babcock's going to bench him. For whatever reason, Babcock's not a big fan of Spezza's, and I don't think it matters how much Spezza scores or how Spezza plays. If we get back to everybody being healthy, he's back in the press box. Nosek, though, would restore the lead at 8 minutes and 8 seconds. That's his first point in 15 games, and it was a misplay by Tyson Barrie that set that up. Tavares was then denied by Fleury. Good chance for Tavares. And then Fleury stopped Nylander. Now, the Leafs took a penalty. Tavares gets called for hooking. Stone would score on that power play from Glass and Theodore at 10:22. So Vegas had 2 power plays, and they scored on both, which has been a problem for Toronto's so far this season. The Leafs got a power play, and guess what happened? They scored on it. Hyman from Spezza at 12:47. Spezza actually hit the post. The puck comes back down, and Hyman puts it in the net. It was a nice play. And Spezza was a post away from it being in and having 2 goals in the game. But he had a goal and an assist, so pretty good night for him. Can't wait till they bench him. Mikheyev and Patan then combined on a play that ended up with Fleury making what was definitely the save of the night. We can debate whether it was one of the best saves of the year. That was what the announcer said, and I thought, it's up there. So Fleury just robbed Toronto right there. The Leafs got a power play with 3 minutes and 20 seconds left, which reminded me Vegas is having a hard time closing things out at home. And so this is where things get really interesting. Eakin would end up scoring into the empty net from Pacioretty and Marchessault. That is Eakin's 100th career goal. That was at 19 minutes and 37 seconds. And that finally salts it away. Vegas ends up with the 4-2 win. And they've outscored their opposition 10-2 in their last couple of games. Anderson saved 33 out of 36. Fleury gets win number 450 in his career. 31 saves on 33 shots for him. Your 3 stars are Fleury, Glass, and Nosek, as Glass had a goal and an assist tonight. Power plays, Toronto goes 1 for 2, Vegas goes 2 for 2. Shots, 10-9 Vegas in the first, 17-8 Vegas in the second. In the third, Toronto outshot him 16-10, again showing Vegas is still having a hard time closing games out at home. So that being said, your final shots are 37-33 in favor of Vegas, and tonight they came out with the victory. And for Toronto, it doesn't get easier from here. And the funny thing is, there's been a lot of talk about how the media might be blowing it up into more than what it is. I'm sorry, but with the amount of money that they're spending on their top forwards, even though Marner's out, that does make a difference. With the amount of money that they're spending on guys like Matthews, Tavares, and with the fact that the defense, they don't have it signed after this season, this is the year. And if these guys miss the playoffs, I don't know how you fix that. So, yes, I do think people get melodramatic. I do think it's only November. But, man, this looks ugly. So, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And I still have one more board to go. Gotcha. Yes, at the 53-minute and 30-second mark, I'm still going. And the last game of the night is Edmonton in against San Jose. And this one didn't have any tension to it. So, that makes it harder when you watched hockey all night and you've got that 13th game and not a lot of tension. Granlund scored from Clefbaum at 3:34. Cassian scored from McDavid and Nurse at 7:59 very quickly. 2-0 lead for Edmonton, even though they're being outshot. But LeBanc scored from Kane and Couture. So LeBanc must have watched my video today too and said, cost per point, I can bring that down. So at 9:23, it's 2-1. And the Sharks pushed for the tie right after that. Koskinen stood tall. The Sharks got a power play, and Thornton had a nice shot that Koskinen kept out, so Thornton still has 0 goals so far this year. It's been 30 games, I think they said, since his last goal. So Thornton's fighting it a bit. But before the end of the period, right before the end of the period, 15 seconds before the end of the period, Jujhar Khaira scores from Chris Russell and Sheahan, and that's 3 goals on 9 shots versus Martin Jones in the first period. I don't like having this conversation. I don't. I like Martin Jones. I look at what Martin Jones has gone through over the last couple of years, and it is very, and I mentioned this in the Discord tonight, it's very reminiscent to me of what Jake Allen's gone through in St. Louis. I think a lot of it is psychological. It may just be the way the team's playing in front of him as well, but that's a 3-1 lead for Edmonton in a period where San Jose outshot them 2-1. Second period, the Sharks were ahead in shots, and I put the same old story. This is the same old story. Kane had a shot that ended up wide from in front of the net. And the Oilers' defense should not be underestimated in this game. And again, we see certain games where the Oilers' defense looks like it's exposed. For instance, the Sharks beat them a week ago 6-3, right? It was like, okay, so the Oilers probably aren't that good. But no, they always bounce back from those games. And you could see shortly thereafter that the Sharks, and Erik Karlsson was frustrated. Karlsson had his share of chances tonight, and he was not happy with the way this game was going at all. Karlsson doesn't have a good poker face. Neal would then score on the power play from McDavid and Klefbom at 17 minutes and 19 seconds, which is remarkable because that's only the second goal on the power play that San Jose has allowed at home this season. Their penalty kill at home has been fantastic, so the fact that Edmonton scored on it, that's notable, and James Neal gets another goal, so he is back on the scoreboard. Third period, the Oilers are 8-0-1 when they are leading starting the third period. That didn't change tonight. You guys can see the score. McDavid took a penalty early. He does tend to take a lot of penalties, that Connor McDavid. The Oilers killed it, and shortly after he came out of the box, McDavid scored from Nurse and Draisaitl at 6:34. McDavid's got an 8-game point streak. Draisaitl's is at 13 games. It's ridiculous. Barclay Goodrow then scored from Shimmick and Burns at 9:43 to kind of make it reasonable. 5-2 at that point, but while some fans were cheering, a lot of fans had already kind of booked it for the exits. And it was a muted celebration for that goal. That was as close as they'd get. This was a really masterful game. And when you look at the shots in that third period, and you see that the Oilers, with that lead in the third period, didn't sit back. They didn't allow 20 shots. They didn't allow 15 shots. They didn't even allow 10. Dave Tippett has these guys buying in defensively. That's why these Oilers are different than last year's. Koskinen saved 33 out of 35. That helps. Jones saved 24 out of 29 for a save percentage of .828 tonight. The three stars are McDavid, Klefbom, and Koskinen. Shots 18-9 in favor of San Jose in the first, 11-9 for the Oilers in the second, 9-8 Oilers in the third. Final shots 35-29 in favor of San Jose. Edmonton 1 for 2 on the power play. San Jose 0 for 2. Rough night. Rough night. We'll see if the Sharks are able to get back to 500. They fought so hard to get back to 500, and now they fall below it again. This is what I was talking about when they were so far behind, when they'd lost so many games, that it takes so many wins to get back to that mark, and then it's so easy to fall below it again. So we'll see if they can get that 11th win to go with that 11th regulation loss in their next game. But for tonight, Edmonton kind of asserted themselves as the best team in the Pacific Division. They restored their 3-point lead over Arizona. And who thought Edmonton and Arizona would be fighting for first? And lingering around out there, despite their struggles in November overall, is Vegas. Vegas is lingering, and you get that feeling that they're going to end up going on a run, end up finishing first in the division, make everybody look like fools. They just go through this November pattern, does Vegas, where they look kind of bad. They did it their first year, they did it the second year, they're doing it again this year, where they have that period where they don't look all that great, and then all of a sudden, everything just turns around. Everything's all roses for them. We'll see if that happens again this year. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below now. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support, and I will talk to you again soon. And Shadow, thanks you for watching as well. I will talk to you again soon.